Mexico Dental Association's annual session. Senior counselor Janelle Johnson, LPCC, was interviewed in the article Inconsistent Mental Health Care at Community Colleges Harms a Vulnerable Student Population for Insight into Diversity. She's past president of the American College of Counseling Association, and she now serves on its executive council. The college celebrated Sfcc night at the Fuego baseball game, and the executive director of marketing and public relations, Todd Eric Lovato, performed the national anthem on the ukulele.
Woo!
Whoa.
Right.
Todd will be playing with Soulfire at the Santa Fe Bandstand on the Plaza on July 19th. That already happened. And SFCC celebrated SFCC night at the Bandstand at Swan Park on July 20th. Under local and statewide bonds, work continues under the guidance of the Local Bond Advisory Committee for projects funded by the local and statewide bonds passed in 2018. Under collective bargaining, the Labor Management Relations Board met on July 12th. Under administration, Tekla Johnson is the new director of the statewide Firstborn Home Visiting Program. The program supports families with children ages prenatal to 3 to increase the health and wellness of women pregnant for the first time, families parenting for the first time, and families adopting their first baby. Hosted at FSCC's Early Childhood Center of Excellence, Firstborn provides statewide training, curriculum, technical assistance, and licensing throughout New Mexico. Johnson is a licensed clinical social worker with 20 years of experience. I have continued to schedule regular meetings with the vice presidents and the executive team, and I've been touring through all the different areas of the campus, and I will add to that in the last couple of days, visiting with people who are connected with the Santa Fe's College of Art and Design campus. So I've met with Daniel Hernandez, who is the city developer for that project, and another team of developers that Megan McGarity hooked me up with. So we are in the plans. And the Financial Services Department has closed fiscal year 18-19 and has auditors on site. The college currently has 25 job openings posted online. The William C. Winter Fitness Education Center coordinates employee meetups weekly, trail runners on 7 a.m., and the walking group on Thursdays, 6:30 to 8 a.m. Our upcoming events: July 27th, summer credit semester ends. August 5th through 9th, the Continuing Education Office and the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum will co-host a 5-day grantsmanship training program. August 8th through 19th is Welcome Week for faculty and staff. August 12th is Convocation. August 14th is the Governing Board Policy Committee meeting from 2 to 4. August 19th, fall credit semester begins. August 27th is the candidate day for filing for the local election, and we have 2 board seats up. And the 17th through the 18th, the Los Alamos National Laboratory Foundation and SFCC present a conference featuring Dr. Bruce Perry, the Senior Fellow of the Child Trauma Academy and an Adjunct Professor of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences at the Feinberg School of Medicine at Northwestern University, and this will be at the Convention Center. This is a huge thing for us. And February 19th through 20th, as promised, the Higher Learning Commission's annual accreditation site visit.
What's this August 14th Governing Board Policy Committee meeting? Did we decide this?
That's the meeting that Jack and I and Laura.
Oh, that's
our
subcommittee.
Right.
Okay.
You don't have to attend. If you'd like to attend, you may.
Thank
Pass.
I can remind you if you'd like.
All right, thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I just want to take a minute to welcome President Rowley here to Santa Fe Community College. This is our first board meeting, or at least because I wasn't here last month, this is my first board meeting with our new president here. And I'm going to put her on the spot since she's less than a month into the job now, and ask her if she's discovered anything on campus that she didn't know was here before she came.
I have discovered a lot of things on campus that I didn't know were here. And I will say that one of the things that, and this is probably just personal to me, but I mentioned it in one of those reports, but there's a trail running group that meets at 6:30 it's actually Tuesdays and Thursdays, which I've been invited to join, and I plan to join next week. So that's kind of an exciting thing for me. But mostly I've been meeting a lot of really great people and really finding out more about what SFCC is doing. And I've just continued to be impressed every day.
Great. Welcome.
Thank you.
We're glad to have you.
Thank you.
Yes. All right, our favorite report of the night, enrollment report.
This one should be easy, right? Because today is the first day of registration.
It is?
Didn't I see that for the fall
No.
semester? No?
No.
Registering for a while. So, Madam Chair, members of the board, President Rowley, I'm happy to be here to present the enrollment report with my partners in crime, Marcos and Todd. For summer, we are down in head count 385 students. In FTE, we are down 121 and about 1,800 credit hours. I gave you all, I don't think this was in your board packet, but I gave you all the report for fall right now, which looks a bit better. We did not do a disenrollment this week, which we had done a year ago at this time, so that's something to consider as you look at the comparison. But we will have a disenrollment on August 12th
That's a disenrollment for failure
for
to
non-payment.
pay?
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct. And I'm happy to answer any questions, and I think that Marcos and Todd have an update on the re-recruitment, correct?
Can I ask, Madam Chair, a quick question about the disenrollment process? So we obviously communicate with people many, many times to get them to come in and pay tuition, but if they get in touch with us, is there the opportunity then for them to work out some kind of a payment plan or let us know they're just not able to pay before we just automatically disenroll
Yes,
them?
there is a payment plan process that students can enroll in, and yes, you're correct, we have a lot of outreach to get the word out before this happens.
And do we have students who take us up on that option?
Payment plan? Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, we do. Thank you.
I'm going to take this off. Madam Chair, members of the board, President Rowley, as much as I know you enjoy the sausage making of, what we do, I thought I would take an opportunity and just share something that we've been talking about off and on, but this is kind of a precursor to the CRM discussions we've been having, but working in concert with the Welcome and Advising Center, the advisors, Tomasina, and as well with Marcos. We, and Opie, of course, for the data, we've kind of embarked on a re-recruitment campaign that's been really successful. I want to share a few quick things about that. So we just examined over the last 3 years which of our students who are not currently enrolled or taking classes are 15 credit hours or less away from completing some form of a credential. So when we whittled down those numbers, that was approximately 1,000 students. And so what we did is we kind of created a campaign to reach them and to see if we could provide some leads to the advisors to kind of then more closely examine who these students are and to really go with an aggressive push on trying to get them back and completing their school here. And so, Mason, please, next slide. And so what we did is we took the data from that and applied it into email and a text message campaign. And so there's just the email. Thanks, Mason. We can go to the next one. And here is, kind of a text message that you might have received as well if you're one of these 1,000 students. They're both effective. We both got a pretty good return on those. But what we're basically asking them to do is to make it easy on them so that you get a message. You don't want a lot of gobbledygook. You don't want to be asked to jump through a lot of hoops. I think where our thinking is these days is just tell us if you're interested and we'll contact you. we're the salespeople. We will get you. Just, are you interested? And we'll grab onto you and hang on for dear life. So basically, they have the option of clicking on that link. And Mason, if you go to the next slide, please. You'll be then confronted with a pretty simple form, which basically we're asking about, their email, phone number, how do you want to be contacted, and best time of the week or in the day. So once we have that information, we can process it. We received out of the 1,000. Go ahead, Mason. About 86 respondents to date. This came out late last week, so that's a 8.6% response rate, which is really good. We'll know how good that is as we do this, every semester, annually. We can judge ourselves against ourselves, which is always the best way to judge it. But, it's not uncommon for campaigns to have success rates in marketing that you would be giving each other high fives if you got like a 5% success rate. And so from that, we've gathered the leads, we've passed them on to welcome and advising to the advisors, and kind of working lockstep with Tammy and Thomasina along the way. And what we're going to do now is just we've got the info. So it's about turning them into students, getting them back for completion. And what I like about this is 86, is modest, but we're down, 300 students? So these are tactics, strategies that we can scale up, that we're learning from. We're establishing templates, new models that we can repeat, but that also, I think, and I hope, can make significant impact on some of these enrollment figures. And so then we also have a campaign that's coming up of people there's people who have been admitted, so they've completed an application, right? So we know who those people are, but they haven't registered for classes yet. And that's, according to our number in the past, that's around 300 people. So we're going after them next. And this will all evolve into much more sophisticated models that I'll share in the coming, months as we kind of you can see this is kind of a data-driven, data-reliant approach we're targeting students on like a targeted, very deliberate way. And so it's really excited. My team and everyone I've worked with seems to be really excited. So I'm really grateful. Also, just want to say too, the people who, this is new to some of them, like just saying, here's 86 people now, like go call them or whatever. We're all adjusting and finding ways to be flexible and working on some mistakes, and we're learning along the way. So this is a first run. I'm very happy, and I'm excited to kind of iron things out as we move forward.
That's good.
Thank you very much, Todd. Madam Chair, members of the board, Madam President, I just want to give a few quick updates on what we're doing in the Office of Recruitment Outreach and Dual Credit. So first piece of news that I want to deliver that I actually got today, just about a couple of hours ago, and that is that we will be resuming our regular hours over at Capitol High School and Santa Fe High School for the upcoming academic year. We will be resuming our Wednesday and Thursday hours, but the good news is we have actually negotiated, and we, instead of being there for an hour and a half now, we are going to be extending our times at Capitol High School and Santa Fe High School to 3 hours. So on Wednesdays, we'll be at Capitol High School for 3 hours. On Thursday, we will be at Santa Fe High School for another 3 hours. So that just gives us that much more of an opportunity for that consistency so that students know where we are, they know where to find us. So we're very excited about that. Also, Madam Chair, members of the board, Madam President, yesterday was the SFPS summer graduation, so Sfcc participated in that, and we gave out Sfcc acceptance letters to every single one of those graduates. I believe they had about 40 graduates total. Each one of those students now has an acceptance letter if they choose to come to Sfcc. Also, Sfcc will be having another SFCC night at Swan Park this coming Saturday. If you like good salsa music, you can see Son Como Son as well as SFCC over at the Swan Park. That's going to be this Saturday. Also, really cool news also that we just got today. We will be collaborating with Earth Care, Youth Allies, and Poder Familiar to actually do some admissions and FAFSA presentations, some outreach over on the south side of Santa Fe, and we'll be doing that at the Zona del Sol space. We're aiming for 3 weeks from now, where we are going to have FAFSA folks there to help students complete their FAFSA, but also apply, because we have everything we need there. They have Wi-Fi there, there's computers. They will be providing free childcare for anybody who attends. So we are very excited about that opportunity, and we hope that we can continue that. Madam Chair.
Good work,
Great,
both of,
thank
all
you.
three of you.
Yeah, I think that re-recruitment is really great. And, yes,
The next step of that too, as we just go further, is how could we incentivize this in the future? We were moving pretty quickly on this one, but hey,
Like money?
as you one of 86 students, can we dangle something to really help you finish? We don't quite know what that might be, but there's ways to look at that that might even strengthen those efforts.
Yeah. And so the south side, Zona del Sol, so how are you reaching out to people to get them there?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So we're working closely with EarthCare because they have a large number of folks that they work with, and they are going to assist us with talking to them about the importance of post-secondary higher education, because I think that's extremely important. That's something that we've been wanting to do more of, is working with our community partners, because I think that all of us here are really good at selling the college to just about anybody. However, there still are folks that may not trust us directly, but they're certainly going to trust somebody else in their community that they speak to on a daily basis. And if that person tells them the importance, the significance of post-secondary higher education, then that gives us a lot of credibility. So we're going to be leaning on them to help us with this, but we'll also do some outreach and work with our public school partners, for example, and some of our community partners as well to pass the word around.
Any questions, board members?
Yeah, wonderful work and good thinking about this re-recruitment. A question, those 300 people who were identified, they were people, how were they identified?
They, Secretary Gamble, when people fill out an application, their information goes into our Banner ERP system, and so that we're able to cross-reference, if I'm understanding this right, we cross-reference the information that will tell us that they've put in their name and some other information, and then whether or not they've actually enrolled in classes. And so we're
Okay.
kind of looking like, okay, you did this part of the application, but you haven't taken classes yet. And so luckily, the early information we're gathering on these people would include some contact information, which enables us then to, communicate with them.
Right.
Hey, you did this, do you want to follow through?
I mean, that's wonderful analysis, and obviously, you could just go on and on thinking about that. People who were in the spring semester but didn't register for fall semester. People, and then a sort of the proactive dimension of all that is people who are only one semester away from school, so they haven't yet had a problem, but you're approaching them, sort of incentivizing that last period. So wonderful thinking and action on all of that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Kathy, anything? No. I have a question. So we're looking at reaching out, trying to get our young Santa Fe graduates to come to the college. And we're doing lots of re-recruitment to bring people back. What are we doing to change or increase our degree programs in areas where we know there are huge demands, like healthcare, like expansion of our nursing program, the EMT program, looking at other healthcare programs where there are absolute shortages and needs?
We are researching those programs that you're talking about where there are absolutely shortages and needs. And so Jenny's working on that as we speak in terms of a needs assessment and to kind of gather some information so that we can talk about whether those are programs that we want to explore. As far as expanding our healthcare programs, it's something that we're always looking at and thinking about. We have been limited in terms of clinical sites and that sort of thing, but that has changed now a bit because of Presbyterian. That's absolutely right. And so we're exploring all of those options. I mean, we have to think about space and people to teach these classes, but those are all things that Jenny is looking at and considering.
So the period of time between doing a needs assessment and actually starting up a program is approximately?
You know, there's no defined time, but she is working on this now, and it's on a fairly fast track. I think she understands that these are things we need information on quickly, and so I can follow up with her and give you a better idea, but I would think we'd have some preliminary information in the coming months. So.
Takes a long time.
President, do you want to weigh in on
Yes,
that?
Chair Siegel, I will add that especially looking at physical therapist assistant, I have a certain amount of familiarity with that one. So what they look for specifically when you try to start a new program is what the demand in the area is. So it would seem to me that if we could figure out from all of our local healthcare providers and then even just physical therapists in the area that would be likely to hire, 1, 2, or 3 assistants depending upon their size and everything, we would probably be able to get a pretty good idea pretty quickly and everything that I have seen in terms of predicting the future is that the demand for occupations like that will just continue to grow. But the accrediting body is pretty specific about making sure that we document things like that. They don't just let you start just because you feel like it.
Yeah.
But I think we could do it pretty easily.
Okay.
One other question. I was going to ask, what is a SFCC acceptance letter? That sounded very interesting, kind of intriguing.
Madam Chair, thank you very much, Board Member Gamble. So that's our ticket to college. So we've been doing that actually now for the past decade, I believe. And we also do that with Capital High School's graduation, Santa Fe High School's graduation, and the Academy Engage graduation, and ECO. So all of our SFPS public school graduations. And we always have a representative from Santa Fe Community College. And we literally will have on that letter just telling these students, dear 2019 Capital High School graduate, congratulations, you have been accepted to Santa Fe Community College for the fall 2019 semester. And then it just goes on to just tell them about our options through our higher education center, through the Welcome and Advising Center, and then it gives the phone numbers for our first year academic advisors so that they have somebody to call and contact. So yeah, it just tells them that all they need to do now is come in and register.
Well,
Madam Chair.
And
Very
I have
good.
the privilege of handing those out at graduations, and students they're just thrilled to receive them. It's enormously exciting for them to get that envelope.
yes. That's wonderful.
On that point, what's the percentage of takers from that letter?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. That's going to have to be something that we're going to need to check out and do a better job of tracking, I would say. However, I mean, if there's any indicator with how we did last year with that dramatic jump, that increase in high school students matriculating to SFCC, I think that those steps, as well as our Ticket to College workshops where we actually do the FAFSA and AccuPlacer, as well as just having that consistent presence in the high schools, I certainly don't think that any of those efforts are hurting us, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, great work.
Okay, Faculty Senate report?
There's none.
None? Staff Senate report? Of course.
Madam Chair, President Rowley, members of the board, if I may really quickly, the accreditation site visit will be the Monday and Tuesday, so it's February 17th and 18th as opposed to 19th and 20th, just to correct the minutes. First of all, Staff Senate would like to formally welcome Dr. Rowley. We've had a very productive meeting with her, and I'll cover that a little bit. First, before that, we have newly revised our bylaws, just made a couple of changes. That doesn't require your approval, our Constitution does. But we've made sure that all employees on campus have representation in one governance body or another. We had a couple who were not. We've better defined our quorum. We've aligned our officer terms now to align with the fiscal year. They were a little bit out of whack. And we've clarified the officer duties for some of our officers. So those were the updates to our revised bylaws. We had a discussion at the last meeting. You don't have the minutes yet. We just received them today from our new secretary. There's a lot of interest in improving and expanding professional development opportunities on campus for staff that are perhaps short, brown bags, something like that, focused trainings to help employees just improve job skills, how to work Excel better, how to do Outlook better, all of those kinds of things. So short, focused trainings. We are considering sponsoring them and developing something like that. We would invite collaboration from some of the other departments on campus. I also want to report that we had a very positive meeting, the officers, with Dr. Rowley. We discussed the recent compensation and related comp and class study processes, emphasized our concerns about transparency, brought to light some of the history of that, the presentations that we've made to you, et cetera. We discussed some of the compensation inequalities. For example, when staff attain a higher degree that's related to their job, there is no additional compensation as there is on the faculty side. And Dr. Rowley immediately identified that as an equity issue that we should work on. After all, we're an educational institution. We really stress that we want to be collaborative and bring solutions to problems or potential solutions as we work with her. That's very important to us as a staff senate, and we really want to stress open communication. So it was a very positive meeting, and I will stand for questions. Thank you.
Questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice report.
And we have no student government report. Okay, can we have a motion to approve the minutes of the work session on the 26th and the regular meeting on the 26th?
I move approval.
Is there a second?
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I do have one question.
Oh, question.
I just want to remind us that we tabled the Labor Management Relation Board member replacement, and that we need to put that on the agenda for the next meeting or the next several
Well, it would
meetings.
have been on this agenda had the person that was asked,
Agreed.
yeah, and
Okay.
they didn't.
Well, as long as we're on it.
Yes,
I'm
we
happy.
are on it.
Great.
Just- Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, no policies. Okay, we moved up, tab F. Henry?
Page is that on?
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. Thank you for allowing us to present this before you this evening. This particular project is pertaining to the Santa Fe Community College Automotive Technology Center Guaranteed Maximum Price Update. We promised the board that we would provide you an update sometime in July. As you know, we started this project, particularly the design part of this project, sometime in October. And so we came to you in March and gave you kind of a, actually that's when we started our construction manager at risk portion of the project. We gave you an update and you asked us to what the guaranteed maximum price was and when we were going to come to closure on that. And so we wanted to give you an update on that this month. But first of all, I'd like to let my peers announce themselves. Again, my name's Henry Mignardo, and I'm the Executive Director of Plant and Operations Management. And to my left,
Hello, my name is Luke Harwood. I'm with Enterprise Builders Corporation, and I am the construction manager and basically the main point of contact for Enterprise Builders.
go ahead, Chris.
Good evening. Chris Van Dyke, architect with Greer Stafford Architects.
Good evening, Elisa Hiron, project manager with Greer Stafford Architects.
Karen Pittman, Director, Project Manager with Plant and Operation Management here.
Well, thank you again. Real briefly, I'll describe to you our update on the Automotive Technologies Center, guaranteed maximum price. The GMP is under development by the contractor, as we just described, our contractor at risk, and the design team. And we're getting closer to becoming final. The current GMP is around 5.3 million. Our maximum allowable cost is approximately 5.1, so we're getting fairly close. We will continue to develop this price to get this price within reason, within our maximum allowable cost through value engineering, which is how we've brought it down so far. And also, one important point is that our construction manager at risk will be receiving bids. These bids that our GMP is based on now are in-house bids with our construction team. They're going to go out and get subcontractor bids, which are much more formal, should be fairly accurate bids. And we feel in pretty good shape that we should be aligning ourselves much closer to the maximal allowable cost of 5.1 million. And so that's in work. We feel very confident that once we receive these bids back, that we should be really close to our 5.1, and that'll be our final effort at value engineering. And with that, I'll stand for any questions as well as our team.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
A quick question. Will you talk to us about value engineering and what that means? So are we giving up certain things in the design in order to lower the cost?
Yes and no. A lot of times when you propose a project, you try and include everything you can think of and some things that you wished for. And when you come down to reality and start looking at your physical attributes, your design team and your construction manager, how they're going to put those attributes, how you're going to build that building, then some of those wishes change and you bring yourself more into reality of aligning how you can physically design a building with a certain amount of money you have and how you can build that building. And when you merge those three disciplines together, you realize that cost has got to come out winning and that you're going to have to give up some of your attributes, and in some cases you gain some. And let me let Chris elaborate, and Luke as well.
Does that mean that the swimming pool will not be included?
Yeah, the swimming pool, unfortunately, Mr. Secretary, has been value engineered out of this project. As Henry said, there's a wish list that we developed, some things that would have been fancy to have in the building, such as a storage mezzanine, something like that. We had some photovoltaics on the roof, which we discovered we could actually do without and still meet our LEED requirements. Those types of things are what we're looking at. What the college will end up with is a building that will be in budget, which is the budget that we're mandated to hit, basically, with our CMAR team. And it will be fully functional as to serving the college for the function that we were mandated to and hired to build. And that's our target.
Yeah. So as the construction manager, at risk, we also look for alternative materials that we could use, and we come up with suggestions for the design team and the owner to consider. We also look into using alternate manufacturers. Sometimes, you get coffee from Starbucks. It's more expensive than the gas station, but pretty much the same thing type of deal. But there are cost savings there with manufacturers, and also as the construction manager, we take our construction expertise and take a look at some of the details that are being proposed and the construction types, and just really examine the drawings and see if there's a way that we can accomplish the same type of construction for a lesser cost. So that's really what we do, is we hone in on where the large ticket items are and just propose different options.
What is the timetable now for next step?
So we're fully engaged. Obviously, the team is well advanced in terms of reviewing and critiquing drawings. The next step is to finalize our design drawings, and we hope to have a guaranteed maximum price sometime in September. And we're even looking at some early work packages, perhaps doing some earthwork early on before the guaranteed maximum price is even completed. And that will hopefully progress the project to start sooner. And once we get our guaranteed maximum price sometime in September, we'll bring it to you all for approval. And based on that, we should be able to start constructing the project.
Great.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So as you look at cost cutting and alternative materials and that kind of thing, how do you ensure that the quality of whatever you decide on is superior?
Board Member President Rowley and Board Member Romero, that's a good question. We're always aiming for superior quality. So we don't jeopardize quality of materials, we don't jeopardize quality of construction, and we definitely don't jeopardize the quality of our instructional team's input. What we do is look for alternative solutions, and those solutions have to meet or exceed quality, and that's just the basis of how we make our decisions.
One thing that we do a lot as well is usually the design team will put together performance criteria for the building. And we look at ways with our subcontractors and ourselves to find alternative materials or manufacturers that can still match that performance criteria in the specifications. That's basically what we do. Everything will be built to code requirements, and this building is also a LEED certified building. So there's all those different criteria that we also got to comply with at the same time. So.
Thank you.
Okay. Any
So
other?
will we start classes in the spring?
Yeah, right.
Members of the board, Chairman, President Rowley, yes, our goal is to start classes, well, our goal is to complete the building in July of next year. So classes would shortly start after that, hopefully.
Well, neat.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Now we go to E.
Financial reports, Nick?
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members, President Rowley. In front of you, you have the financial report for the end of the year, June 30th, 2019. I wanted to start out by inviting Evan Kist with RBC advisors, financial advisors, to come up here with me. Earlier today, we did the official sale of the second part of the 2018 bond issuance and the bonds that were approved by voters in Santa Fe County in the amount of $17 million. If you remember, around this time last year, we had sold about 9.5 million of those, and today we arranged a bid for the purchase of bonds in the amount of 7.5 million, and have really good news for you. We had we essentially were able to sell the bonds at 1.777% interest, so that's what we'll pay, which is very, very, very low. And it's incredibly low. I was shocked. So, you know, the cost of that, of selling those bonds is going to be minimal for the college. And we sold them to, remind me, Raymond James. And so just wanted to let you know about that. You know, our improved financial performance over the years has really helped us with that. You know, Moody's rated us several weeks ago, and they kept our rating at AA2. And so that's really good news, because they kind of have a propensity in New Mexico to want to push that rating down, but they kept ours stable, and they commented on our ability to restore cash reserves and you know, financial management at the institution. So that was really good news. Do you have anything else you'd like to add on there?
Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Rowley, what I would just add to what Nick said is, in comparison to last year's sale, you all had 4 bidders. This year you had 11, so there was high demand for the bonds. Last year, your true interest cost, and that's how you choose the winner of these auctions, was 2.76%. This year was 1.77%. So 100 basis point improvement, and everybody's seen how much the yield curve has changed over the last 6, 12, 18 months. And then just to remind you all, this transaction will close on August 9th. So at that point, you'll be able to have the funds and start using them.
Thank you. So with that, I can keep moving through the financial report, if you like.
Madam Chair, a quick question. Can you remind us the uses for the funds that are coming in to the projects that we'll be funding with the new bonds that just sold?
Yes, Madam Chair, board members, President Rowley, the large portion of the 7.5 million will be really for infrastructure in the college, about 5 million there. I think there's a remaining portion for the fitness center, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, 1 million more, 5 million is the money for infrastructure improvements, 1 million for the fitness center, 1 million for OIT. And we have 500,000.
Thank you. Thank you.
On that point, the $1 million for the fitness center, now, is that specific things in the fitness center, or do you want to come up, Henry?
Chairman, members of the board, President Rowley. It was for predominantly infrastructure improvements, which includes all infrastructure equipment and any infrastructure including walls, floors, roofs, improvements.
So it's very broad, the line.
Very broad. We're going to be up renovating some of the bathrooms
Yes.
with that money.
Okay, good. Bathrooms.
So,
And perhaps even building the general neutral bathroom with that money.
Yes.
so is that supplemental to what what you've recently done with fitness center?
Yes, we had 2 million. We got 1 million the first draw, and the second million the second draw. This second draw will have the 2 million. First draw was predominantly for interior improvements. This second draw is mostly stuff you won't see behind the walls, parapets, roofs, and other infrastructure
I see.
improvements.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
With that, we do have the financial report for you for the fiscal year end June 30th. So this is a good snapshot of how the year ended. And there's a lot of good things in this report. In summary, really, our operating bank cash balance totaled out to be 11.4 million compared to about 8 million last year. That's a $3.5 million improvement there. Tuition and fees revenue, of course, were down. We've seen that trend through the year. That's down 9% and has decreased from year to year by $650,000. Local appropriations revenue is totaled out to be $20 million. And that's a $2.2 million increase from last year. That's 12% of an increase. And it actually is quite reassuring to me because it hit the projection like right on the money with that. And remember, we had switched our mill levy rate to issue bonds and increase some operational funding back in February 2018. State appropriations revenue total out to be $10 million approximately, and it has increased 5% and increased $432,000 from FY18. ING revenue in total is up $1.8 million. That's all the net change between the increases in local mill levy revenues, state revenues, and decrease in tuition. So total revenues are up $1.8 million. That's 5%, and total out to be $37 million for instruction in general. ING expenses were up by $522,000, and that's 2%, and total out to be $32.9 million. If you look at compensation increased by 1%, $325,000, for a total of $24.2 million. And supplies, equipment, utilities expenses were just up close to $200,000 year to year. That's it, basically. Other things I'd like to just point out is revenue. The revenue makeup in terms of where the money comes from, we have about 27% of our entire ING revenues coming from state appropriations. 54% is coming from local mill levy appropriations. In the past, that number had been about 50%, so it's gone up. And tuition and fees make up, I believe, 19% now. And with that, the other really good news is if you look at our ING fund balance, so that's fund balance is really your beginning balance plus your revenues minus your expenses and minus transfers. It gives you basically your bottom line, how much money you still have remaining in there. And these are unaudited numbers, but and there's still some closing entries that we're making to prepare audited financials for the board later this year. But you know, we're looking at $7.5 million in ING fund balance there, and that's quite substantial. We'll be able to transfer about $3.6 million into our plant fund reserves, and it's going to take those reserves up to right about $7 million. As we had talked about in the past, we set a goal of having 3 months of payroll in reserves, and you know the goal really has been about 7.8 million, and we're really close to that. So that's helped with our Moody's rating, that's helped with our issuance of debt, and it's really going to help with especially with our Valley of Death. If you remember those days, back in October, November, which was incredibly challenging for the institution, but now should be manageable. With that, the other couple of points I'd like to make are in the actual financial report on page 4. In total, public service, that's Conference Center, Kids Campus, and Higher Education Center. In total, we had a net gain, net profit, net income, if you will, of $88,000. And as we made our projection for our final budget adjustment for the year, we thought we would bring in $17,000. But because Kids Campus has done so incredibly well as the Conference Center, we have $88,000 in benefit to the institution there. Kids Campus had
great to see the kids' campus ending the year
Yeah.
positive.
Check, check. Check.
Yeah, and kudos to Jennifer Salee at Kids Campus. You know, when she started with the college several years ago, she's really turned around that operation. It's a really shining star for the institution and in the state, and maybe it could be argued in the country. So it's really good to see that. You know, we had that deficit of close to 300,000 when I started with the college almost 5 years ago, and it has really turned around. So she deserves all the credit for that. Now our auxiliaries are a little bit challenging. They're not where we want to see them. Bookstore. It's mainly because bookstore revenues have come in has changed so much from year to year, really. On page 5 of the financial report, bookstore revenues or net gain last year, it was close to $100,000, and it's decreased substantially from year to year, down to $12,000. And in the past, that had really helped subsidize food service. And as you can see, food service is at a deficit. Food service has been running at a deficit for the past few years, and currently is at $23,000 for a total fund deficit of $10,000. A lot of that has to do with enrollment. You know, less people on campus do less business in those areas, and you know, I think a lot of it is Amazon having to compete with those resources out there that you know, the students' taste and preferences are you know, going towards wanting to utilize those things. So, but the way we'll handle this is this positive net gain in public service will help to subsidize the auxiliaries. So we won't be looking at any ING transfers to basically subsidize auxiliaries. That I think is not a direction we would like to go in. And so with that, I could stand for any questions.
Regarding the bookstore, I know we've spoken about this before. What's happening there? Is it simply a matter of students are buying books elsewhere? And how is it that elsewhere can provide them cheaper? And isn't there there was some kind of share program or?
We did it, Madam Chair, Board Member Gamble. We did a book rental pilot, and so we tried that out. It didn't have the outcomes that we were really hoping for there. It's just a really challenging. It's a really challenging thing to operate under the environment that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Very difficult for the bookstore to predict the enrollments in any particular class, and they make their best estimates on, you know, on drop dates, census dates, and things like that, and they take that data into consideration. But while they might know how many students are in a particular class and how many books you need to get, those students don't always go to the bookstore here. You know?
Right.
They can pick things up a lot cheaper, used books, things like that, online, Amazon, and those areas. But what we're looking at right now is we're looking at doing some basically electronic book type offerings to students so that we don't have to carry the inventory of books on the shelf. That's what really becomes costly, because sometimes we make projections on how many books we're going to sell, and then they sit on the shelf. They don't come and pick them up here, and then we're charged for having to send them back, restocking fees, stuff like that.
Right.
So it's really, really challenging, and I think the whole entire bookstore textbook industry has changed. and electronic books are going to be very prominent, I think, for the future. So we're looking at that. I had scheduled a bookstore update in the prior couple of board meetings that we've had, but we've run over. So hopefully soon I'll get Leanne to come talk to us about it.
Right. In some sense, I suppose the issue really is we would hope that our students get their books as cheaply as possible. So our concern really is not that the bookstore be profitable. It's really that our students get, again, the books as economically as possible, and how to do that.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Board Member Gamble, we don't make much money off of the books as far as
Right.
profit margin. As we've talked in the past, we make it off of the snacks that are sold over there and clothing, things like that. So yeah, that's not a huge margin that we're making there.
Right.
And but the books still are expensive. As we've talked to online suppliers, those textbooks, if they're purchased, they're purchased at a much lower cost than an actual physical textbook. So that is one good thing for the students. And they have arrangements where, as you move through the class, you can print them out and print out the particular chapters on site here, and that's all allowable if a student does decide to take an online book.
So there are schools where the faculty are actually creating packets of the chapters that are used from perhaps a variety of textbooks. Do we do any of that? And they can provide them at much lower cost because they only use the chapters that they're going to use in the classroom, and then that can be reproduced much more cheaply. Do we do any of that?
Board Member Romero, we have, and I can't tell you how many, it isn't many, textbooks that faculty have worked together to pick and choose what goes into that textbook, and so it is, put together specifically for us. And in fact, one example that I can think of is our English 109, and there are other institutions that actually use that book, and we get a little bit of a royalty actually for having gathered those materials together, and they've picked them from lists that the publisher has, so it's not just anything that can go in there, but because it's organized in a special way, we get some credit for that. There are some other faculty members who put together packets that have to do with lab materials and various things like that are sold in the bookstore for students or distributed to students. And but as far as selecting a chapter here and a chapter there, I know there aren't a lot of folks that I know of who are keen on that. You know what I mean? You have to work it out with the publisher in order to be able to do that. But I do know there are some. I believe we tried that in a OFTC type class in our business area where we've been able to select chapters from a book and put that together in that way.
It seems to be particularly profitable in the sciences.
I would think that's true. And I don't know that we do that in the sciences other than what I described about having the lab materials gathered together in a packet for students. I know chemistry does that as our facility.
And then are those distributed through the bookstore
Yes.
when those packets are put together?
They're copied in the copy center there in the bookstore, and they're put together there in the bookstore.
Thank you.
And they're put in they're considered an adoption when we make textbook orders. It's just that's kind of an internal textbook adoption.
Okay. Thanks.
Madam Chair, Julie's not here, but earlier tonight we talked about our strategic plan and doing a SWOT to really an environmental analysis, really, to look at trends. And I think maybe this is one of those things that we put on that we need to take a look at, because it feels like we're doing business like we did 20 years ago, and the world has changed. So I'll give you an example. I'm currently enrolled in some graduate school classes, and I bought the books, and I was the only one in the class who bought the books. And then one of my fellow classmates said to me, "Only losers pay for books." So they all go online and find sources, because so much is publicly available now through online libraries, and they pride themselves on the fact that they've never paid for a book in their graduate school.
And I think
And I still have my stack of books. But I think very few students pay for books anymore, or go to a bookstore and physically buy a book. Most students are buying books online. Therefore, maybe we need to look at our business practices and see if they really align with reality and understand what our students want and need.
Absolutely. And Madam Chair, board members, President Rowley, I think that open resource, books online, that's affecting the market too. The opportunities for, the business model, running bookstores and things like that. I mean, if people can get these things for free, I know not everybody's doing it, but it's just how the world has changed. So.
But indeed, you sort of wonder, given the availability of much either free or reduced price books, why does anyone go into the bookstore and buy books? Maybe we need to explore that a little bit. Maybe they just don't know about the websites that sell them. Maybe we just have to advertise the websites where you can get the books rather than have the books there.
We can't hear you.
She said that our master's program dual credit students and financial aid students, they have to utilize the bookstore. If they use their financial aid to purchase course material.
Makes sense.
Really? That's a financial aid requirement?
That's one thing we can bring to you as we plan to talk about this more with the board.
That's really interesting, and it's something we ought to think about more seriously.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you for the overview.
How about a motion to approve the financial statements?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Energy performance.
So Madam Chair, board members, President Rowley, we have an item to approve a resolution to submit an energy performance contract to the New Mexico Higher Education Department. If you'd like to come up. You've already met Evan Kist with RBC advisors, and with me today I also have our bond counsel, Catherine McKinney, who's with Modrell Sperling attorneys. And the reason why, if you recall, we're using Modrell for this transaction is because the NMFA is represented by Sutton there, and they really can't be on both sides of the transaction. So with that, we intend to take, and as you recall, we have been working on the investment grade audit with Henry and Siemens, and as you know, that has been it's 100% complete, and now we're looking to initiate a financing through the New Mexico Finance Authority, and what we intend to do is to take advantage of the rates that NMFA would have for these types of type of financing. We think that with Evan's help, we think that we can get a better rate through the NMFA than if we issued bonds just straight away. So that's what we intend to do. However, there is a pretty lengthy process, and if you'd like to talk about that process, there's quite a few entities, state entities that are involved with this. So.
Good evening, Chair Siegel and members of the board, President Rowley. The energy performance contract has been completed and has been approved by ENMRD at this point. That's Energy Minerals Department of the State. Under the Public Facility Energy Efficiency Act, the contract also needs to be approved by the Higher Education Department. And so that's, this first resolution before you is authorizing the submission of the contract and audit to HED for their consideration and approval. And that's just the process related to the energy audit at this point.
Yeah, since we are dealing with so many state entities, they all have to see these resolutions that the board did approve this in order for them to sort of act on in their role when we take these requests in front of them. In this instance, it would be New Mexico Higher Education Department, but we will have to do the same thing for the New Mexico Finance Authority, and we will also be going to the State Board of Finance for this, for their approval of this.
So this resolution is the HED resolution?
And then does it have to be approved by HED as a gateway before it can move on to the other financing agencies?
Member Keith, the energy audit, the final approval rests with the Higher Education Department. For the financing, it's a separate process.
Okay.
Which starts with the board, and that's one of the resolutions you're approving tonight.
Okay.
And then that also will go to HED for their consideration, the financing package.
Mm-hmm.
And then that does go on to the State Board of Finance for their consideration.
Right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I move approval of the HED resolution.
A second.
Okay. Discussion?
Madam Chair, just one more question. Can you talk to us about how many of these HED is seeing a year? So are we, is it relatively rare, or do we have other institutions, higher ed institutions across the state who are engaged in energy audits as well?
Madam Chair, I think President Rowley could speak to that. I think they did this at Clovis, but also I just want to point out that the New Mexico Higher Education Department, they're requiring state institutions to go through this process in order to finance capital purchases for infrastructure and things of that nature before you make an outright ask to the legislature for an appropriation. Mm-hmm. They want to see that you've gone and done this. In our conversations with HED, they have notified us that you're really not going to be considered in terms of their approval for a legislative capital appropriation if you haven't tried to do this yet. So it's highly encouraged by the department to do it.
Thank you.
I have a question, and I brought this up at the last board meeting. The $6 million in with the period of 20 years duration. There's no, to me, it's a concern how the equipment and everything that we install will really still be functioning within 20 years. But it's not of concern to any of the entities we have to be approved by?
No, I don't think so. I don't know if you have any comments.
Madam Chair, there is consideration given to the useful life of the equipment you're financing, absolutely, because you don't want to be financing equipment, you know, over a period that it's no longer utilized. Mm-hmm. But really the test is the weighted average maturity of the financing has to be greater than the weighted useful life of the items financed. And
as a whole.
Right, collectively.
Okay.
Chairman, members of the board, typically this equipment has 25 to 30-year life. So that's the ASHRAE life expectancy of some of the larger pieces of equipment, and this falls within the 5 years.
Although the technology will obviously change within that period of time, and then it'll be antiquated, but, okay. Let's have a vote. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair, board members. I think the next item you have is approval of a resolution to issue up to $6 million net system revenue bonds for the acquisition and installation of energy-efficient equipment. And Trish is handing out a draft bond agreement that Module's put together for us. You don't have to approve that tonight, but it's for your information. We still have to get the financing structure included in that document. And if you see anything in there that you think needs to be revised, please let me know, and we'll make sure that we get that done.
Be sure Jack gets one.
Yes, we will. And so this resolution, it just allows up to $6 million for the purpose of providing funds for purchasing, equipping facilities of the college, and pledging specified revenues as a security for the payment of the bond. And it also provides for the form and certain terms and conditions of the bonds. And really those terms and conditions, as I understand it, are in that bond agreement that you have in front of you. With that, that's essentially it. And I don't know if you have anything else you'd like to add.
But this is not an action item.
No, it is. It is.
Yes, it's an approval item.
Not this one,
Not this.
Yeah, not that one.
but the one that's in the book.
Okay. Questions?
This resolution is very similar to the one we just did, the
Yeah.
one that we finalized today. So it's sort of in the same format, but again, these are revenue bonds.
Okay, we have a motion?
When you say revenue bonds, what do you mean?
Madam Chair, Member Gamble, what you're pledging under this resolution are your system revenues, which is really all-encompassing. It's tuition, any distribution from land grant, all your revenues that you receive, fees to the extent you've allowed them to be part of your system revenues. That's versus the bonds that were priced today, that's payable through property tax revenues. The intent of these really, while the pledge is your full system revenues, the intent is that the savings will be greater than, or at least equal to, the cost of the financing, so that the impact to your revenues theoretically and pursuant to the guarantee associated with the contract should be a net zero. That's the intent. But it's difficult to pledge a savings pledge.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, a motion?
Madam Chair, I move approval of the resolution to issue $6 million in revenue bonds.
A second?
Any discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, board members. And then the last item that we have in front of you is we're requesting your approval of a resolution to submit an application for financial assistance to the New Mexico Finance Authority. And this is just the formal process of making that request through NMFA. and structuring the financing, and basically we'll be pledging our our expense savings, which are increased revenues, really, when it comes down to it. And so it's just the application.
Okay.
So it's the application to apply
To apply.
It's required by an
for
NMFA.
the funds.
Okay, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you all for staying.
Thank
I
you.
know
Thank you.
That was a
Kept you waiting.
long.
Madam Chairman, members of the board, President Rowley, I was actually reminded by Catherine that she says, "I remember you 7 years ago at HED." She still remembered. So thanks, Catherine, for remembering the old days. My days at HED, we'd see probably one a month performance contracts come through, and typically from the four-year schools, they're in the 30 to 50 million range. So this one is quite small for HED in terms of size. So thank you again for allowing us to present before you this evening. This particular project is the wastewater treatment plant improvements Phase 2 capital project. If you recall, we brought you the treatment agreement last month and got that approved, and we have Ranchland Utility agreeing to service our wastewater for us. This is a capital project. Once we gain your approval for the capital project, this would be the actual installation of the infrastructure to transfer our waste to Ranchlands. Once we gain your approval on this capital project, we will be submitting for HED approval. They don't hear in August, so we'll be submitting in August for a hearing in September. Let me give you a little background on the project. If you will, I'm going to start with page 1, and then I'm going to just highlight some of the information throughout the submittals. These are template forms that are provided by HED, and these are forms that all higher education institutions have to fill out for any capital project submittals. So again, this is the wastewater treatment plant improvements Phase 2 capital project. The project includes design and construction of a new lift station, a forced main, and gravity sewer that would convey wastewater from Santa Fe Community College to Ranchland Utilities collection system for their treatment and disposal. This project includes the equipment that I just identified. It will transfer wastewater management from Santa Fe Community College to Ranchland Utility. We will no longer be treating waste. This will be a service provided by Ranchland Utility. On page 3, there's the description of the project, why it is needed. The existing wastewater treatment plant is aging, and the cost and liability associated with continuing to maintain and upgrade the facility is cost prohibitive, and that's been identified through an engineering study, and it has also been recognized by New Mexico Environment Department. If we jump to page 4, just for your information, this project is scheduled to start once we gain approval from HED, hopefully sometime in September. And it should take approximately 6 months to complete the construction of the project. So we're going to have probably about a 4-month design period and probably a 6 to 8 month construction period. So it'll take about a year to get this project completed. The total cost of this project is $691,200. And if you recall, a year and a half ago, we came to you with a study and we estimated the cost to be around $675,000. So in 2 years, costs have escalated a little bit, but not much. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Questions? Now, this is the money we got from,
Yes, this will be paid for predominantly out of the 2016 GOB. And if we run into any shortfalls out of the 16 GOB, we'll use some of the 18 GOB.
and of course, we have to pay these out. We have to pay for it first and then get reimbursed.
Yes, as other community colleges, we have to pay for the project and then ask for reimbursement.
And how long does that take typically?
Let me ask Nick.
It's pretty efficient. I mean, I would say a 3-week turnaround, generally.
And do you get reimbursed as you go, or do you have to wait till the entire project is finished?
We will typically get reimbursed when we submit a request for reimbursement, and it could be payouts for a particular contractor. It could be a completed project.
Normally, we'll have a payment schedule with the vendor.
Okay.
And as they bill us, we, submit that and get reimbursed.
I see.
Yeah, the state knows the total cost of the project, and they know that that the institution has a 10% bound on that project. Anything over 10% would have to be reheard by the state. So we typically keep our costs, obviously, no higher than 10% greater than total project cost.
Okay. Any other questions?
A quick question, and I think you may have said this, but just so that I clarify, because so we approve it tonight, and then it goes to HED for their approval?
Member Keith, Chairman and President Rowley, yes, we actually will approve the project tonight. We'll probably be approving the contract. We just didn't have it ready this evening. We'll be approving the contract for A&E services next month here at the board. But if we gain approval on the capital project, then we can submit this project by August 10th, so it can be heard in September at HED. So yes, we will gain approval at HED in September, and then we're allowed to spend the money from the GOB to implement the project, construct the project.
Thank you for reviewing the timeline. Much
Yes,
appreciated.
you're welcome.
A motion?
Move to approve?
A second?
Second.
All those in favor, aye.
Madam Chair, can I have one more quick question under discussion? So will you talk to us a little bit about the risk involved in managing the wastewater treatment facility? So we currently manage our own facility and own it. Now we're going to a shared project. What's the risk associated with both of those things?
Okay. Chairman, members of the board, Member Keith, President Rowley, the risk really was treating the waste and the condition of our existing facility. Those were the risks and liabilities that we were accepting on a daily basis. Now that we transfer treatment of this waste to Ranchlands, it's their responsibility to maintain the treatment services and to maintain the permitting requirements. We will still have responsibility for our equipment, and that includes from the flow meter north. So everything south is Ranchlands, everything north belongs to the college. So we will still be responsible for our flow meter and monitoring that flow meter and providing reports on the flow of our waste. We'll also be responsible for our own lift station and all our piping. So we still have to maintain our system, but we don't have to maintain a plant, which was a significant portion of the system.
And what you pointed out at the last board meeting, where I think you were absent, Kathy, we will not be able to get a permit for our existing wastewater treatment. So we have to go with somebody.
Correct. The state of New Mexico Environment Department has said that we're within a mile proximity of a regional plant, and they want to see all communities going to regional wastewater plants. So they would have probably not, they said in so many terms, but they would have probably denied us our permit and told us to seek a regional plant first.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, and we're avoiding, as Nick points out, we're avoiding a $5 to $7 million renovation to upgrade our plant, which we probably wouldn't have got permitted for anyway. So we're avoiding $7 million and a lack of a permit, so I think we're going a good route.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you all very much.
All right. We've already done E. We
Yep.
had our first reading of student records, now board discussions. So we need to talk about the November and possibly December meeting. So as you all know, we have an election in November, which means that we will have perhaps 2 new board members. And we have to, if we don't have a November meeting and we don't have a December meeting, then that means they will not become members until January, which I think would be unacceptable for anyone who's elected. Is that what the statute said?
They do what?
They do
Start in
They
January.
don't get in until January. Okay, then that solves one problem.
That's easy.
I couldn't remember that. Okay. So we still need to decide, do we want a November meeting? And the foundation is interested in having our annual retreat again,
Joint meeting.
Why would we,
our joint meeting.
yeah, in terms of a November meeting, why would we not have a November meeting?
Well, it's scheduled for the week of Thanksgiving, so we would have to change the date.
Okay,
which
right.
I think is totally appropriate.
It is Thanksgiving.
Yeah, oh, it is Thanksgiving.
And the current members would serve through December.
December, yes. My mistake, thank you. So, do we move the November meeting up a week?
And then we also have to consider the joint foundation
Right.
meeting.
You know, what we did last year was we moved it down to the first week in December and had sort of a
Had a meeting
November, December,
beforehand, yeah.
which would kind of make sense. Because the meeting on the, if you move the meeting up a week, it's the 21st of November, and as I remember, none of the financials are finished, they're not ready.
Right.
So we might be better off moving to December 5th, which is the first Thursday.
Yeah, or December 4th, the first Wednesday.
Oh, Wednesday, I'm sorry, the 4th.
I'm supportive of doing that.
December
Yeah, I
4th.
thought
am
that
too.
worked well last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll come whenever you tell me to come.
It's nice if you're in town.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
members
do
of
you
the
have,
board.
you have a problem?
Well, it's not a problem, it's policies. I know you're excited
It's
to have more
policy.
of them come back, but because of, we suspended quite a number, we have a lot of policies that we need to get through, also because of accreditation. So skipping a meeting could jeopardize getting through the policy reviews that are scheduled for this coming academic year.
Well, we still have October meeting,
September.
September meeting.
Alas,
August meeting.
alas, I probably won't be able to bring you revised policies until October, maybe in September, because I don't have the schedule, I can't schedule the faculty senate yet. And I can't schedule them until they return, and even then, it takes a while to get their schedule. So,
Okay, we could, last year, we did have a regular board meeting before we had the foundation joint meeting. So we could have, on that December 4th, a regular board meeting.
that's right. We did that because we had to get something passed.
Yeah.
I just, you don't have to
No,
do
I appreciate
policies,
you
but
bringing
No,
this
that's
up.
good.
it's an
That's
issue that
It's important.
we have quite a few that have been backlogged for the past year and a half, 2 years.
Well, then we better make sure we have enough time before the foundation meeting to
Yep.
hear policies and do whatever our other business is.
You're going to love it.
Then will we be done for months? or-
No, we'll be back in January. Thank you.
This is all Martha's fault.
That's right.
All right, so we're gonna have our next board meeting, our November board meeting in December on December 4th.
Okay.
And have a joint with the foundation.
Has,
Yeah, afterwards.
and has the foundation talked about a joint meeting date yet?
No,
They're waiting for us? Okay.
so you want to have the regular meeting first and then the foundation?
Yeah. So, Kathy?
Actually, don't we have the foundation
Meeting.
first, and then we have our regular meeting?
Did we do that last?
Yes,
Okay.
because then they leave and.
Okay, fine. So, 3 o'clock? And then we'll have our meeting afterwards?
Yeah.
Okay. I think we'll just have a regular meeting.
So our next meeting's August 28th,
We have a retreat on August 17th.
and a retreat.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I like that flyer you put in our books.
Did I see that flag? Oh, yeah.
Okay, is there any other board business?
Oh.
Okay.
Move to adjourn?
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. We'll see you all, thank you.
And we're supposed to take this home and read it?
We did it. Yeah,
Right.
right.